This is, I think, one of the more popular gospel stories. It's a little more well-known. A lot of people have this as their favorite gospel story. And I think people like it because they like Martha. They can relate, people can relate to Martha, right? The person who's focused on hospitality, I think in our Middle Eastern culture especially, hospitality is just so important. And I don't want to diminish Martha's importance and her role that she plays. It's very important. Hospitality is a biblical value. I can point to different scripture verses and scripture stories that talk about the importance of hospitality. But that's actually not what this gospel is about. In this gospel, Mary is the one we're supposed to be imitating. Again, as important as hospitality is, Mary is the example in this gospel. And she's the one who's sitting at the feet of Jesus and listening to him. One of the questions that I commonly like to ask people is, what is your prayer life like? And I like to ask it because sometimes it startles people, because then they realize, oh, I don't have one. But sometimes they give me a really good answer. They'll say something like, I say a rosary every day, or I pray the office every day, or they'll say, you know, maybe I just think about my day and I talk to God about it. I say what I'm thankful for, I say what I'm worried about, I say what I need help with. And those are all really good answers. But all of those methods of prayer have something in common. And all of those prayers, you're the one doing the talking. You're the one doing the talking. If prayer is a conversation with God, then we should probably be listening every once in a while too, right? We should be doing what Mary's doing in this gospel, which is listening to God. Listening and speaking is kind of like breathing and swallowing. You can never do both at the same time. Everybody's trying now. And I've been proven right, haven't I? You can't breathe and swallow at the same time. You can do one or you can do the other. In the same way, you can't speak and listen at the same time. Your mind can either be projecting or receiving, but it can't do both. And so it's important to incorporate a little bit of listening into our prayer life. Listening may seem difficult at first, but it's actually the easy part of prayer. And I know that every single person in this room can listen to God because you're listening to me right now. And you listen to your family, and you listen to your friends. It's the same skill. It's just instead of listening to a human being in your life, you're listening to God instead. So a little bit of help with listening. When we want to listen to God, try doing this. Sit down comfortably. Still your body. Stop moving. And then listen for the quietest thing in the room. And you're going to start by hearing maybe the birds outside, and then you're going to realize that there's something quieter than that. It's the hum of the refrigerator. And then you're going to realize there's something even quieter than that. It's the buzz that the lights make. And then you're going to realize there's something even quieter than that. And it's the sound of my own heart pumping. You can hear the sound of your blood flowing through your ears. And when you reach that, when you reach the quietest thing that you can hear, that's when you switch over to listening to the voice of God. That's how you hone in your mind and your heart to be a listener. Now, the biggest obstacle that people face when they're trying to listen to the voice of God is not actually an obstacle at all. People will say, I tried listening to God, and I didn't hear anything. That's okay. You don't have to. If you listen to God and God doesn't say anything, that is totally fine. Because listening is an act of love, whether God says something or not. And so we listen. But the truth is, it's never actually true that God doesn't tell you something. He always does. But God speaks to us differently than every other human being in our life. When God speaks to us, He doesn't have to speak in words. In fact, I think He prefers not to. God can take the meaning of what He's saying and plant it in your heart without ever vibrating your eardrums. And it's better that way, because then we don't have to ask, what did God mean by that? Or, God used this word that I don't know what it means, I have to look it up. It's better. It's better to skip the words altogether and just let God speak to your heart. And we're not used to that. We may not feel that or experience that, but I have people that I've spoken to about this, and they'll be happier and they'll be more confident throughout their day when they listen to God in the morning. And they come to me and they say, I never heard God's voice. He hasn't said anything to me yet. They don't even realize that in that moment when they are listening, God is whispering in their hearts that He loves them. He's whispering in their hearts, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. And they carry God's voice in their spirit throughout the rest of the day, and they're less worried, and they're happier, and they're more confident, not even knowing that it's all because God whispered His love in their hearts. This is what it means to be a Mary. Don't be afraid if your prayer is sitting silently and listening. It doesn't mean you're doing nothing. Rather, you're doing something that God is very, very happy with. God isn't often listened to. And we can relate to that, can't we? We know what it's like in our own life when we are not listened to. God also wants to be listened to. He has things to tell you, beautiful things, happy things that will make you freer and happier. And I already know what He wants to tell you. He wants to tell you that He loves you. And we all need to hear that. So let's follow Mary's example. Let's continue our prayer life, whatever it may look like, to continue to speak to God, but also to listen to God, because prayer is a conversation.